Well, good afternoon. I am Jasmin Speed, and I am the director for the Prairie View A&M Small Business Development Center. And joining me today is Natalie Point Dexter. I've known Natalie since 2022 under the name of Authentic Inclusion. And our podcasts are all about capturing how shift happens. And so you've got a new name, a new brand to the business. And so we just want to really hear your why. What happened? What caused the shift? So introduce yourself and let's hear your story.
Yes, thank you so much for having me today. And it has definitely been a journey. So Natalie Poindexter, I'm based here in Austin, Texas, by way of Columbus, Ohio. So shout out to all of my Midwesterners out there. I started my business initially because I knew I could solve a problem, which was helping organizations access funding. So when we met, we were still at the heightened stage of the pandemic. Folks were still looking for public health funding, and that was my background. And I'm like, well, I know how to write for public health. I know how to talk about public health. So maybe I can be a consultant on that public health side of things. And as I went on this journey, I realized a couple of things. Your brand is so important,
Yeah.
so powerful in your messaging, in your process, and everything. And so I keep looking to the side because when I rebranded under NPI Consulting House, which is Natalie Poindexter Initiatives, I had someone ask me, what is the thing people remember you by? Because when someone hears authentic inclusion, they're thinking diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting, not grants and technical assistance. And I was like, oh, well, plants. Everybody remembers me for plants. Let's do plant things. And at the time, I was actually wearing these glasses, which are a part of my logo now. And so they were like, Natalie, everyone actually remembers you for your glasses. So I had to transition. I had to find something I didn't need to explain
Mm.
for my business name. They're like, you shouldn't have to explain your logo. You shouldn't have to explain the name of your company. People should be able to recognize it to you. And so that's how I created Natalie Poindexter Initiatives because the thing that can't shift is my name. I mean, of course, I could change it if we wanted to, right? We could do the Chad Ochocinco's of the world, but it is who I am. And so I have now a new brand with NPI Consulting House. And underneath that lives the other things that I do, which is the community, which is called the Net Do community, which is the other aspect is Scaffina, which is the grant and technical or procurement writing that I do, and then whatever else comes next. But the thing that never shifts is Natalie Poindexter Initiatives.
I love that. That's so powerful and so true. I mean, there's nothing behind it. It's just like, period. It is what it is and it works. And so, yeah, thanks for sharing that. Because a lot of times I think people forget, we come up with these fancy names or things like that. And it's hard to connect those dots. This dot starts and stops just with you. And so it makes a lot of sense. Okay, so that's good. Just in terms of the foundation, talk us through how you moved into Scaffina.
Yeah, so in 23, about a year after we met, I put both feet into being an entrepreneur. I was still towing the line, so to speak. I was still in corporate, had a job, and also running this consulting business. And I said, you know what? If I'm really going to, as a very dear friend of mine says, shut up and shift.
I love it.
I'm going to need to put both feet into the thing.
Yes.
And as I did that, a few months later, I was on a panel at South by Southwest with two other entrepreneurs, and we were able to connect with the US SBA Administrator, Isabel Guzman, and Mark Cuban. And the thing that I asked, I had so many questions for the administrator because no one had questions for her. And I was like, as a disruptor, this girl, you gave her a microphone. I got some questions. And so I asked all of these questions to the administrator who kindly gave me her White House response, which was like, email me later. Uh, I went afterwards and said to Mark Cuban, all right, I didn't ask you any questions, so I have two questions for you. Question one is, how do we work together? And question two is, what is your advice for me?
Mm.
And he said, Natalie, take your 6 consulting clients you have now and scale it to 6,000 and come find me. And I took that as a challenge because I was like, say less. I'm going to figure this out. I have no idea how to figure this out.
How to do it. Yeah.
No clue what to do. And so on this journey of the athlete in me, the competitor in me of how do I get to my 6,000 so I can slide into Mark Cuban's DMs, right? On the other side of it, on the other side of it, what does that mean? Because I
Yeah.
wanted equity behind what I did. Um, I wanted to build something with an impact.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I realized my clients had already given me the foundation with the questions they had, with the lack of structure that they had. They knew that money existed, but they were like, okay, I found the grant. Now what do I do?
Yeah.
What do I write? How do I write? I'm a for-profit. I have to start a nonprofit to go get money. And I'm like, whoa, no, don't do that. And so I realized I'm an educator. I am educating many of my clients day one of what the grant or the procurement space looks like and feels like and means. And that's what I started to do. I started to take my knowledge, my expertise, and put it onto paper, which is what I always told my clients to do. I need the big ideas in your brain out of your brain so I can
Mm.
find the funding and help you write for it. And that's how Scaffina started to come together. It went from a Word document to the usable MVP that we've currently built in Notion because I'm not a tech person. And so I was like, what can I build? And I don't need to code because I tried to code in Python one time and I said
Oh.
a slew of bad words.
I remember a conversation we had in January, right before this idea just bloomed. But we were talking about how much competency you had, and that intelligence really gave you a cutting edge. It was really the piece that you offered, and how were you going to best get the connection? There were things happening with the one-to-one, the direct, that were shifting, and you were still trying to figure out, how do you take it, still make it relevant, and still create the connection without some of the expense and the hurdles. And so, did you just have like an epiphany? I understand it got on Word, but what drove you like from Word to Notion? I mean, those are big steps. Something has to happen in your mindset to say, okay, I'm just going to do it totally different. Just wipe the canvas clean. What was it? Was it
Sure.
anything that
Sure.
did it?
Yeah. Yeah. So I built this Word document, right? And it was probably about 12 pages long. It was lengthy. And maybe let's go eight. Let's go eight. But it was still a good chunk of
Yeah.
content that I was like, fill out this document and get it back to me. This is the best way I know how to get all of this out of your head structured. And that was the other thing. I needed it structured. I didn't just need the brain dump of content of big picture why I need $1 million. And so I started giving that out. And my client responses were, this is extremely overwhelming, Natalie. And I was like, okay, cool, cool. I mean, the grant process is extremely overwhelming, but noted, how do I make the end user experience better? And so I made that into a PDF. And they're like,
Okay.
it's still overwhelming. It's organized now, but it's still overwhelming. And I was like, okay, cool. And what ended up happening was I shopped it in front of some UX and UI designer friends of mine.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And I said, hey, this is what I have for you. You use it. And they were like, sure, we'll do that. But our first layer of feedback to you is, have you ever heard of Notion? And I was like, no, I have no clue what Notion is. What is this thing? I don't know how to code. I don't know how to program. And they're like, no, that's not what it is. But I think it's perfect for what you're building. And so I
Great.
started to tinker, and that was genuinely it. I was a 101 brand new to what Notion was, and I just spent the time tinkering, putting in this content, seeing how it looked, and then using that with my clients. And how does that feel to you all? What are you know, what would you want to see? How would you want it to be structured? Um, and that was really what it is. I learned this term of build, ship, and iterate.
Build, shift, and iterate.
Ship,
Okay.
build, ship.
Build, ship, and then iterate. Okay.
Yes. So you
Yeah,
build a thing, you ship it out, you get that feedback, and then you iterate off of the feedback. It doesn't have to be perfect.
I love it. Yeah. And the other thing I'm capturing here is that you took the initiative to do something different because you weren't getting the response. I mean, it's hard sometimes when you're in the business trying to figure it out, but just to make small changes. And you just asked a question like, what can I do with this? So you were open to receiving feedback in order to make things different. And a lot of times people get stuck. They get stuck in their ways and they don't want to shift, or something happens and they still hold on to the past without letting go. And so it sounds like, you tried something different, you asked for questions, you let go, you were vulnerable, and then you received this beautiful process that's really now turned into something different. What do you hope the outcome is going to do, not only for you, but others that are connected to you or using your service?
Yeah, I say that you know, Scaffina has its own mission. But my mission is to educate, elevate, and liberate businesses and communities globally. And I mean that when it comes, especially when we're talking about funding,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be, you know, navigating that journey should not be the big institutions only, or the if you have money to hire a grant writer only. It should really be this transparent process. And that's what I want Scaffina to become. I want it to become that go-to tool of, and also just to say, we do have AI, you know, integrated into this. This is not straight human, right? But it is that aspect of like, sure, it's a tech product. Yes, there's AI, but there are also humans that are
Yes.
working with you on this journey. And that's part of the community aspect of what I want it to be, of this you can't be in all of the rooms. It's not possible to be in all of the rooms. And so what if you are able to be in a room with other people who are going after funding, and they just so happen to be on the West Coast and you're on the East Coast, or you know, north or south, right? Or they're down the street and you just didn't even know they existed. And that's what I want Scaffina to be. I want it to be this educational tool. I want it to be this tech product that is not terrifying to use, where you're like, oh, I have
Yes.
to learn
So
another
good.
thing. I
Yeah.
can't learn another thing. I can't put another hat on to learn another thing to then go do with, I can't do that. So it's this very like teachable experience. And you get confidence in that, by also having this connection to your partnerships. And that's hopefully a roundabout way of saying I want it to be the go-to tool when people talk about funding.
Just a beautiful thought about how important funding is for everybody and the lack of access to just the information and what impact it could have. And so, what I think I'm hearing you say is you want to make it available to people at levels in which they can take it, because that's part of the whole problem. If you don't have access or you don't know about how to pursue it, then you can never really fully engage it or maybe tap into it. So you're really trying to level that playing field so that people have this educational tool to just engage it, to find money through the series of your intelligence and processes that help people along the way. And that is just, I mean, I love that. I mean, sometimes we hear this is the business we're in, but we don't always hear the backdrop of why someone is in the business or what they're doing. And I really appreciate, you sharing that today. It just elevates the whole concept around the shift, kind of why you've gotten here and what you're hoping to do. I would love to be able to connect again, maybe do, a couple of more episodes as we talk about more how you went from the Word document into Notion and what were the tools and the different types of things you used as you're refining it, and the experience that you are having with existing clients and maybe new clients as well. Would you come back and do another episode with us?
I'd love to anytime. Education is my thing and I'm here for it. So let's do it. Yeah.
Anything else you want to say just in this foundational piece before we close?
Don't be afraid to be wrong.
Don't
Uh,
be afraid to be wrong.
yeah.
Okay.
As a business owner, there are so many playbooks, but you have to find the playbook that's most right for you. And so don't be afraid to leave the idea of perfection and just go out, build, ship, iterate, and keep going.
I love it. So I've got my challenges: build, ship, and iterate, and don't be afraid to be wrong. Those are wonderful things and mantras or visions for people to capture, because being a small business requires a lot: resilience and just staying present like you have been. And present means understanding what's coming after you, what's been behind you, and where you're headed. And so I do love what you have said. And thank you so much for sharing. We will definitely get you back on episode 2, more about the journey, and keep doing what you're doing. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.